is the practice you do?
No, it is integrated. You know, I still have a very metric related practice. It means I have to lower A1C below X point, I have to lower LDL, all those things are there. But I try to integrate this as much as possible in patients. You know, each patient is not the same. So for example, I had you all heard of Jehovah's Witnesses? They're very intensely religious people. Wonderful lady. She's a black lady, wonderful person. She came in with high blood pressure. But high blood pressure, you know, the first day she came in, doc, my pressure is high. So then you start talking to her, started finding out that she just couldn't talk. After a while, she was just crying, crying, crying. 2 sessions, she was just crying. What I found was her son had been shot dead. You know, teenager son. What do you go and tell that person? You can't say, I understand. What the hell do I understand? You know, a mother, you cannot comfort her. There are no words to say. All we did was just sat. That's all we did the whole session. I never talked about diet, exercise, medicine, nothing. After the 3rd session, she knew that she could connect to me. At that point, we slowly started talking about healing. And one of the things that we started talking about was, I started speaking to her about a football coach whose son had been shot dead, or whose son had died due to a drug overdose just before a playoff game, and how he went and coached. He was also very religious, so he went and gave the sermon in his church even after his son died. So I talked to her about faith, because she was a person of faith. So I knew that was her core strength. Faith was her strength. So I was using that. And when you use faith, you have to be very respectful of the other person's belief. It doesn't mean I have to follow the same faith. All I'm doing is, her faith is so important that I respect that. That's all it matters. And after a while, we spoke about getting a ritual for her to heal through that. So we arranged a day where she would go to the cemetery, and she would do a small ritual. So I think she hung some balloons and other things, and she kind of let go of that thing. I tell you, she needed no blood pressure medicine. Blood pressure was fine, everything became normal. It took a while, but we can get there. Now I'm working on an Indian engineer who was having a lot of guilt because his father died, and he couldn't spend time with him. Father died in Pune. He's a Marathi guy, very, very intelligent. And his sympathetic activity is so high, hands are cold all the time, systolic pressure peaks, and in fact when he runs, his blood pressure drops because I think his heart is so hyperdynamic. I think it feeds his output. He gets the tachycardic response, but the blood pressure doesn't go up. I think he's got a very hyperdynamic heart. He's going to get a cardiac evaluation and other things, but it's all sympathetic activity. So eventually our goal is to get him in to do yoga and try to get him better. So each person is different. For some we use medicine. Medicines are always available. Use them as a supplement. But you bring in the other treatment. For some they would say, Doc, I don't want medicines, I want to try the other stuff. For some they will say, bring the blood pressure down, I'm scared. Bring it down, use the other things, and then wean them off the meds. You can do it in any one of ways, and patients will guide us. If we listen, they will guide us on what they want. We just listen and follow.
The only reason our doctors hesitate on this is time.
Yes.
That's the greatest problem. Why we are not able to spend so much time. Everyone seems to be busy. They are not willing to spend this extra time.
How many minutes does a typical visit take here?
Both ways. Like the patients are demanding, doctor is busy.
How many minutes does a visit take here? Typically.
Depends on the
Depends on where we are practicing.
Is it 20 minutes is too much or too little?
Depends. That's what he said, correct.
20 minutes is too much? Too much. It is hard. It works both ways. Well, number one, to make a connection with the human being, all it takes is one touch. If you're available, you can make a connection. You may not be able to do everything in one session then. So then what you do is start prioritizing. Okay, this session I'm just going to work on sleep, and I'm just going to give that one factor. If any time we give 2 pieces of advice, you can clearly understand that nothing goes in. You only can give 1 piece of advice in a visit. And that could be just one thing. wake up at 7 a.m. every day. But if we write it down,